ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to begin this session of the Board of Revision by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. All individuals entering city-operated facilities, including City Hall, are required to wear a non-medical face mask. Those at the table are not required to wear masks while sitting, as long as they're distant 6 feet from anyone else. Once you leave your seat at the table, you must put your mask back on. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters with anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you're experiencing flu-like symptoms, we are requesting that you excuse yourself from the room. Please note, when you're joining the meeting via Zoom, all participants will be in the waiting room and your microphone will be muted until the host lets you into the room. You can watch the hearing live via the City's Board of Revision YouTube channel. When called upon, you'll be allowed from the waiting room and permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once you've been heard, you can continue to watch the hearing live via the City's Board of Revision YouTube channel. If any participants are currently watching the live meeting on YouTube, please mute your audio player now. Today on the panel along with me, and my name is Mark Boreski, I'll be chairing it, we have Cynthia Stevens and Richard Whitbread. Our secretary today is Kara Balshaw, and the assessor is Matthew Harling. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Use of cell phones is not permitted except by the approval of the chair. So with that, could we have the swearing in of the parties, please?
Mr. Assessor, for the record, please state your name.
Matthew Harling.
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Applicant, for the record, please state your name. Oh, you're unmuted, or, yeah.
Bradford Scott Borgstrom.
Thank you. And do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just looking for my briefs here. Make sure I have the right year. All right. So, Mr. Harling, could you proceed, please, with the first one on the docket, 62 Scurfield Boulevard, Unit 22, and this being a supplementary. We first have the 2019 year, unless I am mistaken.
No, that's correct. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The file number is 20-618. The roll year is 2019, based on a market a reference date of April 1st, 2016. The address is 62 Scurfield Boulevard, Unit 22. The business assessment ID is 55413, and the owners are TriStar Technical Limited. If you look further down at my brief, at the information under the subject bid, again, you'll see the premise address is 62 Scurfield Boulevard, Unit 22. The current area we have set at for the unit is 2,845 square feet. And we're using a model rent of $11.11 a square foot, which gives us our base annual rental value of $31,608. If you look to the right, you'll see our occupancy costs. You'll see we are assessing occupancy costs for the entire area for heat, electricity, water, and air conditioning, which gives us a total occupancy cost of $6,686. Added together with the base annual rental value, we get a total annual rental value of $38,280. If you look below my subject information, you'll see there at the time there is a lease information. Or this particular lease started in 2014. It was a 3-year lease. The reported area, same 2,845 square feet, and the reported net rent at the time was $13.50 a square foot. If you look below the subject lease information, you'll see my rental comparables. My rental comparables, they range from 1,928 square feet up to 3,785 square feet. So you'll kind of see a range of areas close to the subject property. Some look higher, some lower, some in the middle. You'll see the rents range from $10.50 a square foot all the way up to $13.50 a square foot. The first 3 comparables you'll see, they are also in the same subject property, the same building as the subject property, units 32, 24, and 2. So these rents fall within the model rent we have applied. And if you look below, the last 2 rents at 59 square foot boulevard, they're just across the street from the subject property, similar age of building, wall heights, and such. And again, those rents again from $12.20 to $13.50 a square foot. So I feel that the model rent we've applied for this property is well within what we were seeing in the market this time. So that being the case, I feel the value, the annual rental value of $30,280 we have applied is fair and equitable and should be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Borgstrom, do you have questions? Do we have Mr. Borgstrom?
He is muted. He'll just.
Sorry, my apologies. Okay, so I see there that you are reporting an actual rent in the subject premise, and this is a tenancy and a lease and not ownership of the property, right?
Correct.
Okay, so the occupancy that you report commencing December 1st of 2014 is not the occupant for the purposes of this appeal, correct?
No, it's not for this particular. No, it's the lease that was in place. Yeah, at this time. Yes. Yeah. At that
right.
time.
And do you know how much of that rent was repayment of tenant improvements?
When I was looking at the mailer, I couldn't see anything in there that showed that. Right. So no, I don't know the actual number.
Okay. And do you know with your comparables if any of them include repayment of tenant improvements?
I'm not entirely aware of which one.
Okay. Do you know how much finished space and how much warehouse space is within the subject premise?
I do have the floor plan. The majority of the space would be office space, and there's a back portion, I believe, that is more like a warehouse space. So,
right. And roughly how much is the warehouse space?
Percentage-wise, I don't have an exact. I would have to guess somewhere maybe 20, 30%, something like that, maybe. So
yeah, and that's consistent with the owner. So do you know how much of your comparables are warehouse space?
I'm not familiar with every single comparable, which the breakdown.
Okay. So let's turn now for a moment to your rental comparables, and you show 3 of them within 62 Scurfield Boulevard, correct?
Correct.
And they range in dates from January 12th to September of 2014.
That's correct, yeah.
And you selected those as being most comparable?
I did, yes. So they're very similar in size within the same building, yeah. Rents
okay. Now, were you not aware of the September 2015 rent for about 3,050 square feet in this property?
Which unit would that be? I'm not familiar with that one.
Well, it's within our evidence, but let me just pull it up here for you.
5,050. Yeah, I see it here. Yeah. I see
Yeah,
it.
so that's unit 20.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that's certainly closest or closer to the reference date than the rental comparables you've chosen, and it's reasonably close in size. Is there a reason we haven't chosen that one?
When I was looking at my comparables, I did not see that one at the time. No, so I can't.
Okay.
I don't have a reason why I didn't pick that one. So.
Fair enough. Would it be fair to say that your rental comparables in both your buildings at 62 and at 59 represent the upper end of the rental range?
Without looking at the other comparables in the entire, I don't know the leases of every single unit within that building, so I can't say exactly.
So in selecting your rental comparables, you didn't look at all of the rents in these two buildings that you in 59 Scurfield or in 62 Scurfield?
No, I looked at. I just did not. I can't remember. I don't remember that specific lease, so I didn't choose rents that were just like I wasn't like cherry picking my rents. I was just looking at rents that I felt were fair rents. So.
Mm-hmm. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Stevens, do you have any questions?
I'm sorry, I missed the percentage of warehouse space and I missed the actual number. What did you say it was, Matthew?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have the exact number, but just looking at the floor plan I have, I would say it's probably around 20 to 30% in that range. I don't have, but yeah.
And are you aware of the warehouse percentages in some of your comps, particularly the ones that are in the same complex?
I don't know the exact breakdown. No, I do. Unfortunately,
you don't have that. Okay.
No.
All right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Whitcred?
No questions.
Just a little bit about orientation. Thank you for providing the map. Is this property actually off Scurfield? Is it visible from Scurfield?
Yes, it's on off of Scurfield. Yeah, you drive down Scurfield, you can see it. Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. And between Waverly and Keniston, how far along is this?
Between Waverly, it's very close. It's maybe maybe a 2-minute walk or 2-3 minute walk to Waverly.
Okay,
yeah, so
closer to that end.
Closer to Waverly, correct? Yes.
Okay. So that's all my questions. Mr. Borgstrom, could we have your information, please?
Thank you. So we've submitted a separate brief for each of these appeals this morning, and turning to our first one, I took a similar approach to the assessor in that I looked at not just rents within the subject property, but rents actually in the area. You'll see, so let me back up for a minute just to orient you a little bit better. If you look at page 3 and page 4, that'll give you a little better idea of the subject building in which the subject premise is located. It is between Dover Court and Henlow. So the reported wall height in this building is 19 feet. I can tell you that in terms of wall height, that's inferior. So much will depend on the percentage of office space within these comparable rents as to the rent that they can generate. Another consideration is obviously whether or not a portion of that rent is a repayment of tenant improvements, which we are not or ought not consider. I can also tell you that this property was leased. They occupied the property. The lease ran from February 1st of 2019. I do know what the lease rate is. I have not considered it because it's post-reference. And so I turned to the market, and I'm looking at now at our page 5. And I actually have here 4 separate buildings, all within very close proximity of the subject premise. So the buildings are at 25 Scurfield, 59 Scurfield, 75 Scurfield, and the subject building itself. I can tell you that this list is non-selective. It is all of the rents prior to the reference date within all of those properties. I can tell you that those other buildings are newer, and one of them in particular has a much superior wall height. And so I took a look not only at the rents generated within the subject premise itself, and just you'll recall my question of the assessor regarding a September 1st, 2015 lease, which he said he didn't see. I have included it. It's hour number 4, and you'll see there that the lease rate is $9.75 a square foot. That's and so there is always a range of rents within each property. Similarly, with 75 Scurfield, you'll see a range of rents there. 59 Scurfield, again, you'll see a range of rents, and again in 25. Now, as you get closer to Waverly, it is arguably a better location. But certainly in terms of 25 Scurfield, it's built in 2001, so it is 11 years newer, or roughly, when you consider a potential 50-year lifespan of industrial property without significant improvements, that's about 20% newer in terms of its age. And so looking at those rental comparables with their condition, their age, I've concluded that $9.25 a square foot would be an appropriate rate. I can tell you that I have not had the opportunity to inspect this property. I was actually contacted by the occupant of this premise on Friday, and at which time they engaged us. So I've not had a time to actually inspect the premise, but based on his observations, he suggested it was in the 20 to 25% range. That's consistent with what the assessor has indicated from his floor plan of between 20 and 30%. And so based on that significant component of non-office space or warehouse space, I think that $9.25 for an April 1st, 2016 rent, based on all of these comparables, newer one with significantly better ceiling height, is an appropriate rate. There is no dispute here with respect to the occupancy costs, and we show those on page 6. And so based on all of that, and it's summarized in the table on page 6, we're seeking a reduction to $33,000 based on the $9.25 base rent plus the occupancy costs. And I can tell you that our information, let me back up for a minute. So for this property, for this appeal, and for the 2020 supplementary appeal, I can tell you that Altus Group handles each of these properties at 62, 75, 59, and 25 Scurfield. I have access to the rent rolls in the income expense questionnaires, and so I can tell you with certainty that the rents that I've reported here are what they actually are. And so, again, these are not selective rents. They are all of the rents with leases commencing prior to the reference date. So with that, I am open for questions.
Hey, Mr. Harling, questions?
I guess, yeah, I just have a question about some of the rent comparables you've used. So out of all the rent funds comparables you used, let's say for example, 62 Scurfield Boulevard, do you have like the breakdowns of the warehouse space and the office space in these ones? Or?
In each one, I do not currently have that. As I said, they engaged us on Friday, and I didn't have time to obviously completely research it other than a conversation with the this premises occupant. Okay.
And I guess another quick question is, like, I noticed, like, the rents, like, I know there's a kind of a range of rents. So, like, I know you're asking for the $9 rent. So
$9.25.
$9.25. Sorry about that. Just looking at the range of rents here, like, there's only one of them in the $9 range. Rest of them are in like kind of a 10 to 11. So are you not like taking into account those rents at all? I guess, or
well, to be honest, my belief with these other buildings from our review of these premises, and in particular, I'm familiar with 75 Scurfield. It is one of the tenants in there is the province of Manitoba. That's 100% office. So most of these in this area are going to be, if not 100% office, very close to that. So I have made a subjective, admittedly subjective adjustment to reflect that. What the occupants suggested was between 20 and 25%. If it's as high as 30%, my opinion might drop. I went with the between 20 and 25% warehouse space, and so you need to adjust for that. It's not just within the 62 Skirfield Boulevard, though. You've got all of these rents within the subject area. Some again in newer buildings, and one again with a much superior wall height. So when you look at the global rental comparables, $9.25 a square foot, in my opinion, isn't out of whack.
Okay, no, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Stevens, do you have questions?
Mr. Borstrom, you had mentioned maybe in questioning earlier about tenant improvements being part of the rental payment. Is that the case here? I know that you haven't reported the actual lease for this because it's outside of the, but is that?
So the current occupant, you're talking about the current occupant or the original lease?
Yes. Well, either one, I guess.
So the current occupant, I believe, occupied the premise as it existed. So there were no TIs put into it.
Okay, so you're referring to the previous lease.
Yes.
Okay.
And so when you look at the rents in there, $13.50 a square foot is the highest of the rents in there. Certainly that's a trigger in my mind that there is something else going on with that particular lease. Okay,
but you aren't aware whether that actually was the case there?
No.
No, okay,
I'm going by experience with who the landlord is and what's
understood.
going on. So.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, thanks.
Mr. Whitbread?
I'm fine, thank you.
As am I. Thank you very much. All right, so then let's move on to the 2020 year. Mr. Harling, could you lead us through that one?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The file number is 20-619. The roll year is 2020, based on a reference date of April 1st, 2018. Again, the address is 62 Skirfield Boulevard, Unit 22, business ID 55413, and the owners are TriStar Technical Limited. If you look at information at my subject bid information, you'll see again the address is 62 Skirfield Boulevard, Unit 22. The premise area is 2,845 square feet. We are using a model rent of $14 a square foot to give us a base annual rental value of $39,830. Occupancy costs, we're assessing the full occupancy costs for heat, electricity, water, and air conditioning, which gives us a total occupancy costs of $6,970, which gives us a total annual rent value of the base annual base rent and the occupancy costs of $46,800. Before I go any more into my brief, I do have a recommendation for this particular for 2020. I'll just speak to, if you look below the subject lease information, you'll see that there was a subject lease in place as well at $14. Now this lease ended before the end of the reference period. So regardless, I understand it's $14. I feel it was still a little high, in my opinion, the $14 rent. So that being the case, I actually make an adjustment, and I'm adjusting my the rent I'm going to be proposing from $14 to $11.30, which would give us a revised annual rental value from $46,800 to $39,120.
All right, could you repeat that number? I don't hear you particularly well.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that, actually.
What is the rent you're now going to use?
$11.30.
Okay.
That's the rent I'm proposing. And it's going to be a revised annual rental value from $46,800 to $39,120. And I believe my comparables are very similar to the previous hearing. Again, I have 3 from the Skirfield, 62 Skirfield. They fall within they range from $11 to $14. They're very similar to my previous comparables for the previous year. So I think that $11.30 a square foot I'm recommending still falls within the range of rents I've shown, as well as I believe the rents that Mr. Borstrom has shown in his brief. So that's the value I'm proposing. So.
Mr. Borstrom, what is your reaction to that recommendation?
Well, excuse me. So that's much appreciated, and we're headed in the right direction, but we're not quite there yet.
Right.
So I'd like to proceed on it.
No problem.
Okay. In that case, questions?
I do have some, and so again, I see there that you are using, 3 leases within 62 Skirfield, correct?
Correct.
One in July of 2017,
That's correct.
and 2 dating back to 2012 and 2013.
12 and 13, correct.
So 2012, you show there a lease rate at $11.25 a square foot, but the lease expiry was actually prior to the reference date.
That is correct, yes, but it is slightly, yes, I don't dispute that. Yes.
Do you know if that was what the rent was as of the reference date on that unit?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information, sorry. So.
I see. Were you aware that there are a number of other leases within 62 Scorefield that are much closer to the reference date?
I am not aware of that specifically, no.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know. I was just gonna say. I guess I'm aware of it now. Looking at your comparables, there are. Yes, I see that now. But at the time, no. I guess I wasn't aware of that. No.
So, given. So let me ask another question. In modeling the rents, and I know we don't use model rents here, but in modeling the rents, would the city use leases from 2012 and 2013?
No, we're just showing like these leases are just when in place when I'm searching for comparables. These leases were ones that would show. So I'm just picking leases. I understand it is a slightly older lease, and it did expire before the reference period. So yeah,
sorry. And in fact, as you were reviewing the leases and you suggested that a number of them showed, certainly they weren't limited to these 3, were they?
No, correct, no.
And you selected them arising from their similarity in
the range of size. Yeah, for example, like I understand some of them are older, but I know the range. Like some are a lot larger than the subject, some are smaller. So yeah, I was going to show the range of areas. Yes.
And so again, in 59 Scorefield, you show only 1 lease here. Previously, you used 3.
Yes, I guess yes. I believe because this was a newer. I think it was a newer lease, but my old one. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't show those. I don't know why I didn't use those ones there. I can't.
Okay. Because in looking at your other submission, all 3 leases that you showed there were from 2000.
Yeah, no, those are still good. Yeah, I don't see that.
If you don't mind, am I interrupting here? You were getting frozen there, Mr. Borgstrom, at least at my end. Ms. Stevens, is that happening with you as well?
Yes, it was.
Sorry.
Okay, do you mind repeating your question then?
Sorry. No, I simply asked the assessor about his previous submission where he showed 3 briefs from 2015 in 59 Scorefield. And here he is showing 1. So.
Okay.
Yeah, there was no. I didn't have any specific reason for that.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Stevens, your questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Whitfred?
Nor do I. Thank you.
And none here as well. Okay, Mr. Borgstrom.
Okay, so we've already gone over the property somewhat. Nothing obviously has changed between the 19 sup and physically with the 19 sup or the 20 sup. And so we show our rental comparables on page 5. These are the same 4 buildings that I showed previously. I have updated the lease rates to reflect leases in place as of the reference date. So where a lease expired and there was no occupant, I didn't show that tenancy. And so you'll see there a number of leases. There are a couple of oddballs. I do note that the assessor's selection of the $14 rent is actually one of the highest rents within this property, within the 62 Scorefield. There is a May 2017 lease at $10.50 a square foot for 3215 square feet, which is not dissimilar. And so again, we look at these different properties for exactly the same reasons, including age and certainly the ceiling height. In 25 Scorefield, this particular case for the April 1st of 2018 reference, I'm suggesting $10 a square foot. That's for my particular appeal. I think that $10 reflects the appropriate rent for this premise, given its what we think is 20 to 25% warehouse space. We go through the calculations on page 6, showing the occupancy costs, again, for which there is no dispute. And we seek a reduction based on all of that to $35,400. So $10 a square foot, occupancy costs works out to $35,400. And I am open for questions. Thank you.
Mr. Harling, questions?
No, I don't think I do. No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Ms. Stevens?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread?
None, thank you.
Just a question about the fact that there is warehouse here. Do you have any more information, Mr. Borgstrom, about all of your rents that you show here? What percentage of those units have warehouse?
Yeah, and I think there was a similar question on the 2019 file. I was contacted by the occupant of this premise on Friday, so I didn't have, frankly, the opportunity or the time to drill down as much as I would have preferred. I can tell you from my personal experience on 75 Scourfield that there are a number of premises in there that are 100% office. The government, I think it's tourism, has some space in there. I believe that is 100% office. But other than that, I didn't have time to actually drill down and physically get the details on them.
Is there any rule of thumb about how much the rent goes down when the warehouse part goes up?
Well, there is a relationship. It's not a direct mathematical relationship, but if somebody's going to lease up, and in fact, I can tell you that 75 Scourfield was an industrial property. It is now classified by the city as an OFS. So they have it classified as an office building, even though it's industrial originally. And so flex warehouses have an almost infinite variability in terms of the percentage of office finish within them, because they're typically bays and they just move the wall depending on what's needed. Obviously, where there is more warehouse space present, there would be, in the mind of the tenant, and I would suggest the landlord as well, less rent achievable. Otherwise, the tenant would simply go to a warehouse space if they needed that space separately. So there will be an adjustment in there necessarily. And that's just, there's no mathematical or direct formula that I can point you to. That's just based on 31 plus years of experience.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Matthew.
All right.
With your permission, I'll exit the meeting.
Okay,
Do we have 20 Mead Street ready?
we do. I will admit him now.
And then I need to reread the introduction.
Yes, perhaps. I did send him the YouTube link, so he may have seen it, but
All right, let's check with him to see.
yeah.
And the gentleman's name is what?
Terrence Weed.
Sorry, the last name, can you spell it?
Wiebe.
Sorry, you're breaking up there. Could you try it again?
Wiebe.
Weeb. Okay. Let me know when we're all ready.
I will. It looks like we're having some issues connecting. May I just request a 2-minute recess, please? Oh,
Certainly.
hold on. Pause that request. I see him. Okay. Mr. We see you now. You'll just have to unmute your microphone, please. Thank you.
How's that?
That's good.
Okay, thank you.
Good
morning,
morning.
Mr. Weed.
Good morning. How are you all?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
At the very beginning, we had the 2 other properties to deal with. I provided the opening statement that we always begin these sessions with. Were you zooming in at the time, and did you hear that statement?
I was not. I was following it a little bit on YouTube Live, which apparently was not live, so
All right.
I did miss
then.
something.
Then I will read this statement, some of which pertains to you, some would not, but it is our standard opening statement that we provide. We acknowledge always that we are in Treaty 1 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. All individuals entering city-operated facilities, including City Hall, are required to wear a non-medical face mask. Those at the table are not required to wear masks while sitting, as long as they're distanced 6 feet from anyone else. Once you leave your seat at the table, you must put your mask back on. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact with anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you're experiencing flu-like symptoms, we are requesting that you excuse yourself from the room. When you're joining the meeting via Zoom, all participants will be in the waiting room and your microphone will be muted until the host lets you into the room. You can watch the hearing live via the City's Board of Revision YouTube channel. When called upon, you'll be allowed from the waiting room and permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once you have been heard, you can continue to watch the hearing live via the City's Board of Revision YouTube channel. If any participants are currently watching the live meeting on YouTube, please mute your audio player now. I'll introduce the members of the panel and myself. My name is Mark Boreski. I'm the chair of the Board of Revision. With me today on the panel are Cynthia Stevens and Richard Whitbread. Our secretary today is Kara Balshaw, and the assessor is Matthew Harling. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. So, with that, we will have you sworn in by our secretary.
Oh, Mr. Applicant, for the record, please state your name.
Karen Speed.
And do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Harling, could we have your evidence, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The file number is 20-802. The roll year is 2021, based on a reference date of April 1st, 2018. The address is 20 Mead Street. The business assessment ID is 55334, and the owners are May Street Grocery Distributors Limited. If you look below under the subject bid, you'll see again the premise address is 20 Mead Street. The premise area is 2,438 square feet. We are using a base model rent of $9.92 a square foot, which gives us a base annual rental value of $24,185. If you look to the right, you'll see the occupancy costs. We are assessing for heat, electricity, and water, full area. However, we have exempt the air conditioning for I believe the building has, from what on my records, the building doesn't have any air conditioning, which gives us a total occupancy cost of $5,145. Adding that together with the base annual rental value gives us a total annual rental value of $29,340. If you look at the subject lease information, it's an owner-occupied property, so we have no leases in place. There's no lease in place. And further below, if you look at my rental comparables, you'll see some of the comparables I have used. My comparables range in size from 1,700 square feet up to 3,112 square feet, and my rents range from $9.20 a square foot to $10.17 a square foot. Some of this, I would just like to note, like my comparables, they're kind of my comparables exactly in the same subject area was somewhat not difficult, but there's just some that I felt that were better than others. So I have a few that are further away from the subject property. So there is a range, and I won't dispute that. So, but they do fall within my actual rent reported. So, but that being the case, I asked the board to confirm the value, the 2021 assessment value, and rental value of $29,340. Thank you.
Mr. Weeb, do you have questions about the information that the assessor has provided here?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name of the assessor. The connection is a little bit broken up.
It is Matthew Harling.
Matthew Harling. Okay. Yes. All right. So my question is, was the level of services in the building specifically, I'm referring to things like office space, ability to occupy, the existence of washrooms in this case, taken into account, because I also took a very cursory look at the comparison properties, and just based on the types of businesses that are located there, these properties have considerably more amenities, services to be had for anyone who is occupying those buildings. So I would like to know how that was taken into account with determining the rental value.
You mean in terms of like the comparables, or just how we assess the property in general? Yes, or
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Like, do you mean like? Do you mean based on the comparables I have like how we assess the property? You're just saying is it the similar way we would assess like those properties compared to yours? Is that what you're saying? Sorry, I guess like the way.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. When it comes to when we're assessing properties, we assess them all in terms of like it's the same methodology we use. Obviously, when it comes to things like rent and area, we look at those things specifically. For example, like the occupancy costs, if you didn't have water, or in this case, you didn't have air conditioning, we would exempt that. So the methodology we use is the same for every business, but there are various, depending on the quality of the building, the condition, those are many factors that we would put into place in terms of how we would apply a rent, for example, or things like that of that nature. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Weeb?
No, not at this time.
All right. Ms. Stevens, do you have questions of the assessor?
Yeah. So these, you did mention this. So these comps, none of them are in that specific area, correct?
The McDonald Avenue it's close. However, again, it's only a 1-year lease. I couldn't find out if they had re-signed the lease or not. So Watt Street is it's slightly further away, different market region. Scott Street is in kind of a similar, like Aaron and Scott are kind of like it's a different market region, but similar kind of area. Like it's an industrial area. Aaron's got a lot of older buildings and such too. I mean, I'm not just saying they are. I'd still say it's a little bit better in terms of area, but very similar style of like area in terms of like industrial buildings and such. So.
Okay, and I'm assuming you haven't actually been in this building. Have you driven by it at all, or?
For the subject property.
Yes.
I know of, yeah, I know of where it is. I have driven by it, but I haven't physically inspected the property, and then we have I was able to see kind of aerial views of the property, but no, I have not physically inspected the property. No, so.
Okay, but you did drive by it. Okay.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Okay. And you said previously that you aren't aware whether your comps have similar amenities as the subject property. Yeah,
exactly. I said I haven't unfortunately been able to inspect it, so I can't say 100% no. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I had. Thanks.
Mr. Whitbread.
Nothing, thanks.
Mr. Harling, looking at your comparables here, Watt Street is a long way from Century Street. These are spread out all over the place.
Yeah, I don't dispute that. It's there's not a lot of buildings I could find that were similar comparables, so that's why I had to kind of spread my reach out. So of similar, because I was trying to find rents of similar size and such, So
your priority was to find the similar building as opposed to the similar location.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, ideally, you can get it all. That's the ideal. We want to get as close as possible, but in this case, yeah, I tried to get as close as I could in terms of type of building.
Okay.
So
how attractive location is this? Does the subject have 20 Meath Street relative to its purpose?
It's definitely it's kind of tucked kind of more in the back off of Higgins. So yeah, it's definitely not as good location as some of these. I don't dispute that. Yes. So.
Okay. If a property doesn't or has some space that is actually not usable for one reason or another, is that accounted for in this?
Yeah, I mean, we would look at that at the time, depending on the space that's not useful, we would, generally we would like to inspect it because we want to just verify what the space is. If it is situations, let's say this certain space was being used specifically for, let's say, we had the lease that space where it had a furnace in it or, electrical equipment that couldn't be used for leasable area, we would then remove that. So, but again, we would look at that as we inspect that. So yes, but that is something we do take into effect. Yes.
And when you list the premise area on these sheets, is that the actual leasable area or is that the gross area?
No, when the areas we lease would be, or it's considered leasable area. There are situations where we might be different in terms of what we would use, what maybe a tenant would use. So again, we'd have to take a look into the specifics. Like if someone would call us and say, hey, we're only using our leasable area is this amount of area, we would then go inspect it, check it out, and confirm, maybe because things change over time, maybe building additions, demolitions, there's many things that would happen. So we would kind of look at a case by case basis in that case. So
okay. That's all my questions. Mr. Weeb, could we have your evidence, please?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So, again, in assessing in the comparative properties, I want to actually acknowledge the difficulty in comparing this property, and I do not dispute Mr. Harling's wider reach geographically in terms of finding comparable properties. However, where we would differ there is that the building on this property in question, and I believe also in the terms of square footage, I don't believe we're contesting that. We're talking about, based on my papers, a few square feet difference. So I don't know if that's worth arguing about. But the building itself is simply a garage. It is used for nothing more than storing a semi-tractor and a skid steer for snow removal to keep those diesel engines warm in the wintertime. So the property comparisons, I would say, are inadequate in terms of the type of activity that could take place. This building actually does not have water hookup or bathroom facilities. So I would say that the rental value is overestimated for sure. I would point to, so Mr. Chairman, you were asking about leasable area. I believe you all have a copy of the satellite image of the property. This is simply taken off of Google Maps.
Yes.
And I that. Do you have it in color? Because I highlighted in pink.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go. And the remainder of the property is really not leasable, as we were saying. So the square footage there is what we were talking about as portrayed in pink. That's really the property that we're talking about. So I would propose a much lower rental value to the annual value as stated in the property income and expense questionnaire that I submitted. So of the annual value of approximately 7,200. So I'm sorry, I would like to give some more information on that.
Certainly.
Simply that brings the square foot rental value to approximately $3.60.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, I would like to also point out that the annual rental value previous to the January 1st, 2020 assessment was listed at 0. So there has been a past acknowledgement of the lack of rental value on that property.
Okay. Anything else?
That is everything for now. I am available for questions. I'll be.
Okay, Mr. Harling, questions, please.
I guess the only question I just have is, so I was just curious, like, so you obviously, like, is this space used for an actual business? Or is it just like more for storage space? I'm just kind of, I wasn't sure exactly. Like,
Yeah, as I said, it's used as a garage. The property was purchased for the speculative value of possibly putting a building there eventually, which obviously isn't happening anytime soon, given the circumstances of the business climate right now.
Okay, no, that's.
But yeah, right now we're simply using it as a garage for a semi-tractor and a skid steer.
Okay. No, that's actually all the question I have. Thank you.
I'm sorry, is that your only question?
Yeah, it's the only question I have. Yeah, that's good. I'm thinking yes.
All right. Ms. Stevens, questions?
Is the building heated at all?
The building is heated. Yeah, it is certainly not much. I don't know if you're familiar with diesel engines, but basically they have to be kept above freezing temperature to run properly.
Is diesel? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
so it's being heated to a minimum.
Okay. Is it just one large open space? Is it divided up at all? Is it?
Yes, there is a division in the building. Not used for, the division is
not used for anything other than the storage. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Whitbread.
Are there employees working in the building?
No, there are not.
So they just go there and get the truck or get the skid steer to do whatever they have to do and then return.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, there's not even a toilet in the building. So because of its proximity to our main facility here, it's simply go there, get what you need, come back.
Understood. Thank you. Nothing else.
I don't have questions for you, Mr. Weeb, but I do for the assessor. Were you aware of this information that that Mr. Weeb has provided today when the evaluation was made on this property?
No, I was I was not aware of that. Like I was just like one of our field assistants is the one that was handling because there was a permit taken out for an occupancy, so that's what prompted this to assess them for business assessment, put them in. So I wasn't aware of that at the time, no, because I didn't know.
Taking that into account, is there anything that you would suggest or any course of action that might be taken?
Well, for example, like definitely, like I understand if there's like no, obviously, like we would obviously I'll go back and look at, like, for example, we'll look at the area or modify the leaseable area if it's, you know, if we're slightly higher. For example, I understand there's no water in the space, so we definitely would remove the occupancy cost for water. And going forth, yeah, we would, you know, we would take a look at maybe adjusting the quality of the building. As it's an older, I believe it's an older building too, so we would adjust that to maybe reflect better rent on that going forward. So.
And though this is storage, is it your contention that a business is operating here and that it falls within the parameters of the Act's description of business assessment? Yes.
When it comes to business assessment, basically, just kind of, reiterating in the City of Winnipeg Charter, for any premise used or occupied by a person for carrying a business in the city, whether or not the person resides in the city, must be assessed for business assessment. Now, I understand there's no one in the building stuff, but it is used for, I guess, the equipment. If the equipment, they say, whatever was used for business, we would still assess it for even storage. So.
Okay. And then I guess I would have a question for Mr. Wiebe. So you said there's a tractor and a skid steer. These are used for the purposes of operating May Street Grocery Distributors Limited?
That is correct.
All right. Okay, that's all my questions. With that, thank you very much, Mr. Wiebe. And we will deliberate in private, come up with the answer, and you will receive that in the mail as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Harling.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
You as well, thank you.
All right. Shall we take a 5-minute break?
Yes.